Welcome to the ultimate guide to meal prep. We'll figure out your calories, we'll figure out your macros, we'll figure out a meal plan that reflects these, and I'll show you how to do that as quickly and as efficiently as possible. This guide will be simple and easy and help you get started on your nutrition journey. To meal prep effectively and easily, you need a few household items. That will be a microwave, a kitchen scale, a rice cooker, and an air fryer. So step one of this process is figuring out your calories. Now what we like to do, and one of the most efficient and accurate calculations, is the Cunningham equation. The Cunningham equation figures out your resting metabolic rate. So what your energy needs are at complete rest. So what this calculation is 500 plus 22 times your lean body mass. To be able to find out your lean body mass, you will need to do some sort of body composition scan. From this, we can figure out how much lean muscle you have. So I'll give you an example. If I'm 83 kilos at 15% body fat, that technically means I have 73.1 kilos of lean body mass because I've deducted the amount of fat mass from my total mass. With this calculation, 500 plus 22 times 73.1, that means technically my RMR is 2,108 calories. At complete rest and to function, my body needs at baseline 2,108 calories. Now is step 2, which is an activity multiplier. Now this is something that people overestimate way too often, and they basically overshoot their caloric needs. But for this guide, I'll explain it to you. So what we need to do is your activity multiplier is you get your RMR, so your resting metabolic rate, and we times it by an activity multiplier, which reflects your amount of training. So this can vary, as you can see here, from sedentary to super active. So what you do is here, so if you're sedentary, you simply times your RMR by your activity multipliers. That would be, for a sedentary person, 1.2. That's people who just, just basic walking every day, activities of daily living. For this example, what I'll do is I'll say that I am lightly active. So I've got my baseline, 2,108, and I have to times that by lightly active, which is 1.375. So which means my caloric needs will be 2,898 calories per day. So what we're gonna do now, we've got our maintenance calories. Now what is our goal? Predominantly when people start meal prepping or changing their nutritional intake, it's for the goal of weight loss. So what we'll do here is we'll start off with an example amount of a 15% calorie deficit to induce fat loss or weight loss. So what we do is we get our figure 2,898 calories, and then we remove 15%. So that leaves us with 2,460 calories. This amount here reflects the amount of caloric intake per day that will result in fat loss, aka weight loss. So this is our daily target. So that is step 1 done. We've figured out our caloric needs, and we've figured out our goal, and we've made sure those two things align. The second step is figuring out your macronutrient needs. At the end of the day, if you're on a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. But what we try to do at TFD and as performance dietitians is to make sure that whilst in a deficit, you can still perform and recover in training as best as possible. Now to be able to do so, you need to make sure that your macronutrient splits are reflective of optimizing performance and recovery. These are kind of the most common macronutrient splits for active individuals. Carbohydrates making up 45 to 65% of your caloric intake that day, protein 10 to 35%, and fat 20 to 35%. And depending on what type of activity you undertake per day, you can manipulate these. If you're training very high intensity, lots of explosive activity, such as combat sports, you may want to have your carbohydrates quite high, protein moderately high, and your fats quite low on certain days, and manipulate that depending on your training load and intensity. First of all, you've got to realize that what we're doing now is we're going to figure out these macronutrients in reference to our calories through the percentages, but also calculating it through these figures. So 1 gram of carbohydrates equals 4 calories. 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories. 1 gram of fats is 9 calories. So for example, on this particular individual, this example, we want to have a high level of carbohydrates to really facilitate high intensity training. So we're gonna go for 50%. So 50% of 2,460 calories, which is our target, is 1,230 calories, which equals, if we divide that by 4, which is the caloric amount of the carbohydrates, 307 grams of carbohydrates per day. Then we move on to protein. We're gonna go for 30% because we're training, we wanna recover, we wanna have that satiety level because we're in a deficit. 30% of 2,460 is 738 calories. Again, we divide that by 4 and we get 185 grams. So we're gonna get 185 grams of protein per day. And then finally fat, which is gonna take up the remaining 20%, which is 492 calories. We divide that by 9 now, because that's the caloric value of a gram of fat, and that is 55 grams. Step 1 complete, step 2 complete. Now we can plan our overall intake or our meal plan. So we've got our caloric target, 2,460. Carbohydrate target, 307 grams per day. Protein target, 185 grams per day. And fats, 55 grams per day. So this is the starting point. We've got our caloric needs. We've got our macronutrient kind of split here to reflect a specific goal. From here, now we plan the intake. So now we've figured out our calories and our macros. Now it's about making the meal plan. Now I made a very quick and simple 5-day meal plan. So this includes variety, but also it hits our targets every day. Now this is just an example to show you that if you are busy, you can do this nice and simply and it's easy to execute. So I'll quickly take you through it. So for breakfast, Nutella oats with berries. We're gonna have oats, blueberries, Nutella, and some YoPro. For lunch, it's a Mexican chicken and rice. For our snack, which is generally the pre-workout snack, because most people train in the afternoons, it is pikelets, fruit, and honey. And then for dinner, teriyaki beef with potatoes. So again, that is 3 main meals and a snack. Like I spoke about before, our targets were 307 carbs, 185 protein and 55 fat. In this meal here with these measurements, I've got 303, 185, 52, which is slightly less than that, but basically bang on. And then you're obviously taking into account if you're gonna eat a bit extra or there's a bit of error with your calculations. So that's completely fine. As long as it's in the region, that's completely fine. So this is the thing. Now you've kind of mapped out your intake. I've mapped out over the next 5 days how I'm gonna hit my targets. I've included a lot of variety to keep my taste buds happy, to keep my mental health happy in terms of having variety. And now I need to basically go to the shops and buy all these items and begin preparing. A lot of people go to the grocery store with no plan and kind of just wing it, and often either don't get the right items, don't get enough, or maybe they'll get too much. But I'll show you how to do this in a more intelligent way. So basically you're doing this again as efficiently as possible, saving money really. We have our meal plan. We have all our measurements. Now simply what I have to do over here with my shopping list is I have all the items I need and I have all the measurements for all the meals throughout the whole day here. So all I have to do is simply times this amount by 5. So I have enough food for the 5 days. So for example, in the morning when I have my breakfast, my oats are 80 grams of raw oats. I times that by 5. So minimum I need to get is 320 grams. Most oats come in half a kilo or a kilo. To save money, I'll get a kilo. Then you've got Nutella, which I'm having 30 grams a day. For money's sake, for time's sake, I'm gonna get a kilo of Nutella. If I'm getting chicken, I'm having 200 grams of chicken at my lunch. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna buy a kilo at least. I will provide a more detailed document of this so you can kind of see how I've worked this out and see the kind of the detail on this. But what I'm simply doing is I'm figuring out exactly what I'm gonna eat, the measurements, and then I'm just timesing it by the amount of days I'm gonna do this. And this creates a shopping list, which means when I go to the shops, I'm efficient, I know where to go, I know how much to get, and if I wanna save money, it's a perfect amount I can begin to buy in bulk. Simple as that. Calories done, macronutrient split done, basic 5-day meal plan done that is delicious, but it also reflects our targets. And then now I've just created a very basic shopping list. As you can see, this process does not need to be hard. It does not need to be complex. You don't need to kind of stress over this process, because if you break it down into these 4 steps, it becomes very easy. So what we'll do now, we've done all this planning. I've logged this into one of my apps. I have a shopping list app, which is a very basic free app, which has my shopping list. And then I'm gonna go to take you guys to my local Woolworths, and I'll show you the process. I'll show you how I go from shopping. I'll come back here, begin to create a few of these meals as well. I'll kind of lay it out for you. We've done all the maths, we've done all the hard part. Now it's just about shopping and preparing the meals, and then we're done. Okay, let's go. I've got the list, but now I'm just gonna go through each section strategically to make this as efficient as possible. So we've got the produce done, now going to the meat section, then just run through that like that. Just really nice and simple. I have it all itemized per section of the supermarket, and again, easy work. So then, yeah, so what I like to do as well is to make sure it's cost effective as possible. So I like to buy in bulk. So if I have the numbers here, like I spoke about at the house, with what I'm trying to aim for, I want to be as cost effective as possible. I like to buy in bulk as well. Everyone always complains about having to get the amount of water in per day, or a large amount of water in per day. One thing I always recommend is stuff like this, which is just like diet cordial, so like no sugar cordial. It flavors the water, makes it easy for you to get in. Also fantastic for water loading too, because they're generally low sodium. So I'm just getting the teriyaki sauce. Obviously there's a plethora of choices. So just quickly look at the nutritional panel. This one here, very low in fat, moderate in carbohydrates, but going to be very minimal in terms of the caloric addition to the meal that we're going to prepare it with. So again, I'm just making sure that I'm getting the lowest calorie version of this teriyaki sauce out of all these choices. So again, just quickly look at the nutritional panel, compare it to a few other ones to get the one that is the most calorically friendly, especially the weight loss guys. Now, hot sauces are great in general during a dieting phase because the majority of them are very, very low in calorie or calorie free. For example, Frank's hot sauce. If you look at the nutritional panel, Frank's hot sauce, it's 1 cal per serving. There's 30 servings in here. This whole bottle is only 30 calories. So this is something that I get all my clients to add if they want to spice up their meals. In addition to that, any herbs or spices you can basically utilize any time of the year, because herbs and spices are generally, again, low or 0 calorie. Another hack, I like to cook my food and in some cases add fats in the form of extra virgin olive oil, a lot of health benefits. But again, a good way to kind of increase the flavor of meals is get flavored olive oil. So I really like to use garlic and onion infused ones, or these other ones here. So any ones that are flavored is a great way of obviously adding the fats, the healthy fats, but also adding a bit more flavor, especially in the dieting phase. Yeah, so I'm looking for something for a Mexican seasoning. This brand here is all natural, minimal to no additives. So this is something that I usually opt for in terms of flavorings and stuff like that. Obviously there's heaps of choices, but I just personally like to have an intake that's as low as possible in additives and stuff. There's nothing really bad or dangerous about having foods with additives, but again, if we're talking about optimal health and optimization, these are the kind of things I do. One of the meals we're making has the carbohydrate source is rice. A lot of people ask me, should we opt for brown rice over white rice, basmati over jasmine? Personally, I think you should just opt for something that you enjoy the most. Relatively all the same glycemic index, the same carbohydrate content. So I, again, always advise opting for a carb source, or in this case, a rice source that you enjoy the most. In terms of meal prep and just making sure that I'm not wasting any food, I always opt for frozen fruit. Again, that's just to minimize the amount of waste. Sometimes fresh produce can spoil early. So when it comes to most of my fruit sources, other than the banana, I get them frozen. One of my diet tricks, which I get most of my clients in a dieting phase to implement, is this specific dessert. This dessert is 0 calorie or low sugar jelly, and then mix that with a low calorie ice cream. So if you do the jelly pretty much as you want with a scoop or two of this, you're looking at a pretty volume dense dessert with a calorie intake of about less than 100. So it's a great diet hack. The sugar-free jelly, pretty much as you want, 2 or 3 scoops of a low calorie ice cream, and then you've got a fantastic dessert option in the dieting phase. Again, when it comes to veg, I opt for frozen veg, just for the simple fact, again, of minimizing waste. So I just get the frozen broccoli, and I can either microwave that, I can heat it up in the oven or the air fryer. Again, quick, easy, and reduce the amount of spoiled produce I'm having. Often people are very time poor and don't have time to cut up everything and stuff like that. So they've actually released this product, which is fundamentally chopped potatoes, but it's chip form. So I'm going to use this as the carb source for dinner. The macronutrient is fantastic on this. It's basically just plain potatoes with a little bit of extra fats in them, but very calorically friendly, and something that I'm going to utilize in this meal prep because Again, I can prep it very easily. Great carb source, and add minimal nasty to bulges too. So great carb source. A great way to make your rice that much tastier. In the cooking process, in your rice cooker, or when you're boiling it, just add this in place of water or in conjunction with water, and you will thank me later because it's absolutely delicious. So just got back from the supermarket, so I've got everything I need for this 5-day meal prep and some. I've got bulk items for some of the things just to make sure it's a bit more cost effective. Like I've got a large amount of blueberries, a large amount of oats, I got a value pack of chicken, a value pack of rice. You know, meal prep can be expensive at times, so trying to find those ways of making it that much cheaper is fantastic, and buying in bulk is the way to do it. So this is everything I'm going to need, and I'll take you through the process of how to bulk cook some of the items and how to put it together and how to make your 5-day meal plan as easy as possible, as tasty as possible, and to make sure it's hitting your targets. So now we've done all the shopping, now it's about the food prep or the meal prep part. So the way that I'm going to do it, and the way that you should do it at home to make it a lot easier, we're going to batch cook the protein, so the meat sources, and we're going to batch make the carbohydrate sources. So what I'm going to do is, these are my big storage containers. I'm going to separate them to the one's going to have chicken, one's going to have beef, and then these ones here, I'm going to have the potatoes or the rice in 2 separate ones. And then maybe I'll have a 5th one, which will have the vegetables that I'll put in the main meals. Once we've batch cooked the proteins and the carbohydrate sources, I'll put them in these containers to store away for later. But then what I'll show you what to do is I'll lay out 1 full day's worth of food so you can see that. So in terms of what you need to meal prep, like I said before, the cooking instruments like you can see here, very important to have your kitchen scale there. What's awesome these days is they have specific containers for meal prep. So as you can see here, it's a container which has space for everything you need. Very simple. So you just need an air fryer, a rice cooker, kitchen scales. Go for your shop, have your condiments ready, have your storage available, and then have your meal prep containers for those days. We have our meal plan set out, and then I have all the measurements for the 5 days. So I have all the totals of the proteins and the carbohydrates that I need to cook out. So I'll reference this throughout to make sure that I'm cooking the right amount of food for the 5 days. And then what I'll do, again, like I said, I'll set out a full day's worth of meals from breakfast, lunch, afternoon snack, and dinner, so you can see what it looks like, and then just multiply that by the 5 days. So what I like to do first is cook the carbohydrate sources. So what I'm measuring out the 5 days worth of potato, which is for the dinner. This is a kilo worth of potatoes, which is the 200 grams per dinner over the 5 days. Because we're doing 270 grams of cooked white rice per meal for all the lunch over the 5 days, I'll just cook up about 2 to 3 cups of dry weight rice. And then once it cooks, then I'll measure it out, as you can see later. One thing with the rice, what I'll say is that I do predominantly use water as the mixing agent with it, but also I like to put chicken stock. Obviously it's got a great amount of sodium in there, but it's very good for the taste component of this. So this is something that's a game changer for my rice intake. One aspect of cooking that doesn't get spoken about very often is food safety. Now we're creating a document about meal prep, which will outline food safety in terms of cooking temperature of meats, the storage component of meats in terms of how long it can be stored for, and all those factors. And what I'm doing here today, if I'm using the air fryer for different products, or if I'm going from carbohydrate source and I'm cooking my chicken and my beef, I'm washing as I go. So while we've got the carbohydrates cooking, I'm just going to make the breakfast for the day, which is 80 grams of oats, Europro yogurt, blueberries, and Nutella. So I'll just do this while I'll just show you for 1 day. Very quick and simple and easy. Again, just using kitchen scales, measuring out my oats, and I'll measure out everything like that. And then because it's overnight oats, I'll put it in the fridge. I don't have to cook the oats there. The process with the yogurt and a little bit of water, it will soak overnight, and it's absolutely delicious. Yeah, so a lot of people don't like measuring food or find the process very arduous. But what I say to people is that you don't have to do this for the rest of your life. It's just good to do for a short period of time so you kind of understand portions and you understand, So you understand portions, and then you can kind of, after a few weeks, you can simply eyeball the amount of food that you need to eat to get the desired outcome. So it's not something you have to do every day for the rest of your life. I just encourage people to do it for a short period of time, understand, be able to visualize the amount of food, and then implement kind of visual portion making in the future. Because a lot of the time what I see people do is that they say, I'm having a tablespoon of peanut butter. I'm only having one with breakfast, but then I ask them to weigh it out and they'll be shocked. So a tablespoon is about 25 grams of peanut butter. But then most of the time when people do it, because they love peanut butter or Nutella, they have a huge scoop and it ends up being 50 grams, for example. So without even knowing it, you've doubled the amount of peanut butter you're having in the morning. And because peanut butter is predominantly fats, you just doubled your fats for that breakfast or for that meal. And then that can be the difference between you being in a calorie deficit or being at maintenance levels over a 7-day period. Zero it out, so I know how much I'm taking out. When I put it in there, it'll tell me what it is. So, oats 80 grams, Nutella 30 grams, GoPro 175 grams. So 175 grams of GoPro is in there, oats is in there. So now I've got 30 grams of Nutella. Beautiful. 32. Am I worried about it? 32 grams. Am I worried about the extra 2 grams? No, that's completely fine. This in here. I want to mix this around. $151. And that is breakfast done. I know there's Instagram reels that a lot of nutritionists and dietitians make that make it look a lot fancier, but this is a stock standard, delicious, easy to make breakfast that hits all your macronutrient targets. And once I place this in the fridge, it does its overnight thing. It's going to taste delicious in the morning. So again, quick, simple, easy, delicious meal. Day one, breakfast done. So now we've done the breakfast, the carbohydrates are getting cooked. Now I'm going to prepare the meat. It's very important to have 2 separate bowls because I'm using 2 separate types of meat. I'm going to cook both these meat in the air fryer. But what I'll do, I'll cook the beef first, then I'll wash, dry, then I'll cook the chicken and make sure I also store them separately. So we're preparing the beef. As I stated yesterday in the Woolworths, this teriyaki sauce is relatively low in calories. You can factor it in. I generally don't factor in my sauces unless they're very high calorie. With this one, I'll probably factor in 50 to 100 extra calories over the 5 days. But again, that's pretty negligible, so you don't really have to do that if the calories are required. So what I'll do is that I'll cook it like this, and then once it's cooked and I'm preparing it, I might add a little bit of dash extra sauce there just to make sure it's extra tasty. So that's as simple as that for the beef. That's all prepared. Once the carbohydrates in the form of the potato chips are cooked, then I'll start to begin to batch cook the beef. And now, the same with chicken. But with chicken, I'm gonna have to cut it up just so it cooks a little bit more evenly and the proteins are evenly. What I didn't mention was that the beef was already measured out. I needed 1 kilo for the 5 days. I bought 2 500-gram packs. There was no need to measure that. Got the 2 packs, put them in a bowl together. That's the 1 kilo. So, like the beef, I need 1 kilo of chicken. Zero this. I've cleaned this. This being the scale. So you can cut your chicken however you like, as similar to size as possible. So when you are cooking it, it cooks evenly. What's really good is if you get a knife that's actually really sharp. And now I have cut up all the chicken, so I'm just going to season it. Again, seasoning. This is 10 calories. Or the whole, if I use the whole thing, it's about 100 calories, which I'm not. I'm probably using a quarter of it. I'm not even going to factor that in because it's such a minuscule amount. And to be too food obsessed is not healthy, or calorie obsessed. So I just do it to my desired amount. The main elements of the lunch and dinners for the meals are being created. We've got our potato, we've got our rice, we've got our beef, we've got our chicken, all in the batch. So what we're going to do here is that once I've cooked them all, I'm going to go and place them individually I've got 4 of these, chicken, beef, potatoes, rice. Store them separately. And then what I like to do, because depending if you work in the office or you're on the go, then you have them all in your fridge. And then each day, when you're getting ready, wake up in the morning, simply just serve them up into these containers that I'm going to show you in a bit. Make sure you have a cool bag to make sure the food safety, again, whilst you're on the road or whilst you're at work, if you don't have a fridge handy, you've got that on hand to make sure that you're covering those bases. So once we've cooked all the main elements up, we're going to store them in these in their batches. And then once you start your day or the day that you're going to work or you're on the road, simply just create that day's meals from these batch cooked items. There's 2 ways you can do this in terms of making sure your measurements are correct for each day. Get the batch cooked items and you weigh it out and divide it by 5 and put that into your day's plate. Or number 2, you can simply eyeball 5 days worth and you can divide it up by the way it looks. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're following that meal plan for the 5 days, if you have a little bit of extra one day or a little bit less the other day, it all evens out over the 5 days. So you don't have to be exact on every meal every day. It's all about that 5-day total. That is that done. We'll let that cool off for a little bit. But fundamentally, the carbohydrates are 50% done. And then we just have to wait on the rice. This is my new fancy rice cooker. I could have got the normal one, but this had a lot more buttons on it, so I definitely wanted to go for this one. It seems like you could cook a variety of rices, even cakes, congee, and soup. So why not spend the $65 at Kmart instead of the $15, you know? The afternoon snack in this meal plan is designed for a pre-workout type snack. This is one of the most popular with my clients and something that I personally implement because of the simplicity of it. I have a YoPro Perform for the protein source. I have carbohydrates in the form of a banana and pikelets, and also honey. So this meal is so good, or this snack is so good, I should say, because you can have it on the road, at home, anytime. You can pack it with you. It's simple, easy, and it's also delicious. So what I generally do is I put it all into a bowl, and then I just get the honey drizzled all over, and I'm ready to go. So this is something that I say to everyone, if you have a busy schedule, or have an office job, or you're on the road, this is one of the goats of pre-workout snacks that you can have on the road. So for the veg sauce, I've gone with frozen broccoli. Great source of fiber and micronutrients. I put some bread on the plate, very easy to prepare. So I'm just gonna grab this, put this in the microwave for about 3 to 4 minutes. It will cook and I'll add it to the meals later. A common question is about cooked versus raw weight. So what I tell people is measure everything initially in raw weight when it comes to proteins. So the protein component, I plug into MyFitnessPal raw, then I've cooked it all, but then you ask, what happens now that they're cooked? So what happens is I get all the cooked protein, I place it into this storage, and then I know, so when you cook it, the water will come out and it will weigh less. So we know this. But because I've weighed it before, I've cooked it and I've placed it all in this container, when I go to serving it, I place it on the scales, whatever the number is there, I just have to divide it by 5. So that will still reflect what it was before. Then measure your proteins in raw weight, cook them, place them all in a container, and then when it comes to serving them, divide it by the number of days you're preparing for. So when it comes to carbohydrates though, I do everything on this board and my meal plans are cooked weight. So I batch cook the rice, I place it in here, and then I'll individually, when I'm doing the meals, I'll measure it from there. So I don't have to be exact with the amount of rice I'm cooking, I just have to cook enough, and then when I go to serving, I make sure it reflects that. Salt is good. Salt is an electrolyte, use it. And then, to add extra fats, like I spoke about, I generally use extra virgin olive oil or avocados. But as I said before, with this extra virgin olive oil, I like to get the flavored additions just because it adds a little bit more flavor to the meals. The beef's cooked. I've washed the air fryer tray. I placed the chicken in there. So now we're cooking the chicken. So we've done the potatoes so far. We've done the beef. We're just waiting on the rice. Now we'll do the chicken and we're nearly done. So now we've batch cooked the proteins and the carbohydrates, and now we need to serve. So what I'll do is I'll show you how to do it for one full day of your meal plan. So our first main meal, being the lunch, is a chicken and rice. I've already shown you the breakfast, which was the Nutella protein oats. So what we're going to do here, so I have the 5 days worth of rice. I'm going to place it on the scales. Altogether, this is 1,268 grams or 1.268 kilos. I go over to my meal plan. I know that I need 270 grams of cooked white rice. I now zero this. As I take it out, it says minus 84. Take a little bit more out, 273. Now again, doesn't have to be perfect, that's completely fine. So that's the rice component done for this meal. So this, for example, this is a Monday. The rice component's done. I've put the veg component of this meal. Now, for my second main meal, or the dinner, which is potatoes and teriyaki chicken. On the scales, it is a kilo. So I need 200 grams, as per the meal plan. 1 kilo divided by 5, 200. So again, I'm just going to, potatoes done, rice done. As you can see here, vegetables, carbohydrate component done, and now we just got to do a little bit of extras, which is the protein component. You can add sauce if you want, and I have an extra bit of fat for this meal, which is avocado, which I've already cut up. So yeah, so now as you can see, our proteins are cooked and ready to go. Like I said before, raw weight and cooked weight proteins will differ, because as you cook something, they lose water weight. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the scales, and whatever this weighs, I'm going to divide it by 5, and that's for this particular meal. And the same with chicken. I cooked 1 kilo worth of beef. Once it's cooked, it now weighs 907 grams. All I'm going to do is divide this by 5. So my trusty calculator, 907 divided by 5, I need 181.4 grams. So I'm just going to go 180 grams. So again, I'm going to zero, and I'm going to go to 180 grams of beef. Again, wash the tongs. Place the chicken. So interestingly, chicken's been a bit different. It's 981 grams now. Some meat products lose more water than others, and the quality of some meats will determine this. Poor quality meats generally have more water, and high quality meats generally have less. So again, 982 divided by 5, 196.4. So I'm going to zero it. 196.4, so I'm going to go for 196 or 197. 197 on the money. Lunch and dinner served. And that is the meal prep done. As simple as that. That took us around 40 minutes to prepare from start to finish. Shopping took us about an hour. So in total, this takes about 2 to 3 hours of your whole week, and you're prepared and you've got delicious, healthy, nutritious food ready to go. So again, I'll take you through. We have Nutella protein oats with berries. We have a Mexican style chicken with potato and broccoli. For our afternoon snack, what I would say a pre-workout snack, we have pikelets, banana, another yogurt, and some beautiful honey to top it off. And then for dinner, we have teriyaki beef with rice, avocado, and broccoli. So with these meals, I always pack in a hot sauce. Again, basically 0 calories. You can add this to your meal, as well as much as salt and pepper as you prefer. And then with my dinner, this teriyaki sauce, if you want to put a little bit extra on your beef or your rice, you can do that also. This basically hits all your macros so you can hit your goals. But in terms of training performance, you've got an abundance of carbohydrates for muscle recovery, satiety, and all those great things. You've got all the protein, you've got a lot of color for micronutrients, and yeah, this is basically a full spectrum nutrition plan that will hit all your needs and is very simple and easy to do.